Told to stay away, they didn't listen. Pride became their downfall in the distant future. Humanity had expanded its reach far beyond Earth. Colonies were established on planets across different star systems. The discovery of faster-than-light travel had changed the fate of the human race. For the first time in history, people from Earth were able to explore new worlds, meeting strange and fascinating alien species along the way. One of the leading experts in xenobiology, Dr. Grace Bennett, was known for her passion and relentless curiosity. Her drive to understand alien life was unparalleled. She spent years researching distant planets and their inhabitants. There was one species that always intrigued her more than the others, the Valther. Little was known about them, except that they were ancient, powerful, and shrouded in mystery. Grace's interest in the Valther had consumed her. She was determined to learn everything about them, no matter the cost. The Valther had been silent for centuries, but the possibility of discovering their secrets sparked an excitement in Grace like nothing else. She believed that understanding the Valther could open new doors for humanity, doors that led to untapped knowledge, advanced technology, and maybe even a way to secure human dominance in the galaxy. One day, as she was going through ancient texts and data from past expeditions, Grace found something unexpected. A strange signal had been detected from an uncharted planet deep in a neighboring system. The signal was faint, but it was undeniably of alien origin. Her heart raced as she examined the data. It was unlike anything humans had ever encountered. Excited beyond belief, Grace couldn't resist the urge to investigate further. She knew this could be the breakthrough she had been waiting for. There was just one problem. The planet was located in a restricted zone, a place where no human ship was allowed to enter. The area had been designated as a danger zone by the Galactic Council, which had imposed strict regulations on space travel in that part of the galaxy. Grace, however, didn't care about the warnings. She saw this as an opportunity to push humanity's knowledge to new heights. After all, she believed that human curiosity and ambition were the keys to progress. The warnings of danger, the risk of an unknown alien species, and the potential for conflict didn't faze her. In her eyes, the risk was worth the reward. She approached Captain Nathan Carter, the leader of the Eclipse crew. Nathan was a seasoned space captain, calm under pressure, and deeply committed to his crew's safety. He had been in command of the Eclipse for several years and had seen countless missions, both successful and disastrous. When Grace shared her findings with him, he listened carefully, his face betraying concern. "Grace," Nathan said, looking at the data with skepticism, "this planet is in the middle of a restricted area. The Council doesn't take these things lightly. There are reasons why no one is allowed to go there." But Grace was unrelenting. "I understand the risks, Nathan, but we've been given a chance to make history. I believe the Valther are out there, and this signal is the proof we've been waiting for. We need to investigate." Nathan took a deep breath. He knew Grace's passion well, and he respected her intellect, but he also understood the weight of her decision. He had seen too many impulsive actions lead to disaster. Still, there was something in her conviction that made him hesitate. If anyone could handle this mission, it was Grace, yet he couldn't ignore the doubt gnawing at the back of his mind. "I'll take it to the crew," Nathan said, "but I won't promise anything." After briefing the crew, Nathan called for a meeting. The Eclipse was ready for launch, but there were mixed feelings among the crew members. Some were excited by the prospect of exploring unknown territory, while others were nervous about the dangers that could lie ahead. Grace stood before them, her eyes filled with determination. "I know this mission is risky," she said, "but this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We are on the verge of something incredible, and we have the chance to be the first humans to uncover the truth about the Valther. Together, we can make history." Nathan glanced at his crew, seeing the doubt in some of their eyes. He had been the one to make tough decisions before, but this time it felt different. The stakes were higher than ever. The mission could be the breakthrough Grace had always dreamed of, or it could be their downfall. "Let's do it," Nathan finally said. "We'll prepare for the journey, but I want everyone to be aware of the risks. We're entering unknown space, and we don't know what we'll find." The crew agreed, though with some reluctance. As the ship prepared to depart, Grace couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the cusp of something monumental. She stood on the deck of the Eclipse, looking out at the stars, her heart pounding with excitement. This was it, the moment she had been working for her entire career. The chance to meet the Valther to unlock their secrets was finally within her reach. The journey to the uncharted planet took several weeks. As they approached the restricted zone, Nathan kept a close watch on the ship's systems. He was no stranger to danger, but there was something about this mission that felt off. The deeper they went into the restricted area, the more the tension in the air grew. The ship's sensors began to pick up unusual readings, anomalies in the space around them that couldn't be explained. Grace, however, was unfazed. "It's just interference from the planet's atmosphere," she said confidently. "We'll be fine." But Nathan wasn't so sure. "We're in uncharted territory, Grace. We don't know what kind of dangers we're dealing with." Despite the warnings, Grace remained determined. "We can't turn back now. We're so close." As they entered the planet's orbit, the ship's systems began to malfunction. Strange energy readings flooded the sensors, and the crew worked tirelessly to keep everything under control. It was clear that something was very wrong, but Grace pushed forward, refusing to let anything stand in her way. "Prepare for landing," she ordered. "We're not turning back." Nathan hesitated but ultimately complied, knowing that he had no choice but to follow orders. The eclipse descended through the planet's atmosphere, its engines struggling to maintain control. The landscape below was rugged and barren, with rocky terrain stretching as far as the eye could see. It was a place that seemed untouched by time, a world frozen in silence. As the ship touched down, the crew disembarked, following Grace into the heart of the alien ruins. The planet was eerily quiet, and the air felt heavy with an unknown presence. The ruins they found were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, massive stone structures covered in strange symbols, as if they had been built by a civilization long gone. "This is it," Grace whispered, awe in her voice. "The Valther were here. They left us a message." The team began to explore the ruins, carefully documenting everything they found, but Grace was focused on one thing, the artifact. It was a small, metallic object covered in intricate carvings, half buried beneath the rubble. The moment she touched it, a surge of energy shot through the air, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. "We need to leave," Nathan said urgently, his instincts telling him that something was wrong. "We've disturbed something. It's not safe." But Grace refused to listen. Her hand gripped the artifact tighter. "This is what we came for, Nathan. This is the key to everything." Before Nathan could argue, the sky above them darkened and the ground shook with a violent force. The Valther had arrived. The moment the sky darkened, the crew of the Eclipse felt a chill run through the air. Grace, still holding the alien artifact, stared at the sky with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. The ground trembled again, and a deep, rumbling noise echoed from the distance. Something was coming. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest. He knew they had made a mistake by ignoring the warnings, but now it was too late to turn back. He turned to Grace, his face filled with concern. "Grace, we need to get out of here now. This is more than we bargained for." But Grace was lost in the moment. Her eyes were wide with excitement as she looked at the artifact in her hand. It was glowing now, pulsing with an energy she couldn't explain. "This is it, Nathan. The Valther are here. We've unlocked something incredible." Nathan's eyes narrowed. He knew better than anyone that the unknown could be dangerous. "I don't care about your discovery, Grace. We need to leave before it's too late." Before Grace could respond, a dark shape appeared on the horizon. It moved slowly at first, but as it got closer, its size became clear. It was enormous. The creature, or whatever it was, seemed to glide over the surface of the planet, its form shifting with every step. It was like nothing the crew had ever seen. Tall, sleek, and powerful, it moved with a kind of grace that belied its intimidating size. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, and a blinding light flashed across the sky. The Eclipse crew shielded their eyes, and when they looked back, they saw more of the Valther. Hundreds of them appeared from the shadows, their bodies shimmering like they were made of light. The air around them seemed to crackle with energy, and the temperature dropped sharply. Nathan's grip tightened on his weapon. The Valther had arrived, and they were not here for friendly introductions. "Get ready, everyone," he shouted, trying to stay calm. "We need to stick together and get back to the ship." The crew quickly formed a defensive line, weapons drawn, but they all knew it wouldn't be enough. The Valther were far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. These beings didn't need weapons to be deadly. Their very presence radiated power. Grace, still clutching the artifact, looked at Nathan, her expression conflicted. "Nathan, they're not here to hurt us. I think they're trying to communicate." Nathan glared at her. You're still not getting it, are you? They've already warned us. This isn't about communication. It's about survival. If they wanted to talk, they would have done it before now. The Valther leader stepped forward, towering over the humans. He was different from the others. His body was darker, his form more solid, and his eyes glowed with a fierce light. When he spoke, his voice was deep and commanding, though no words were spoken aloud. Instead, his thoughts filled the minds of the crew, his voice reverberating inside their heads. Humans, the Valther leader's voice boomed inside Grace's mind. You have trespassed into our domain. You have broken the rules of the galaxy. This planet is off-limits to your kind. Leave now or face the consequences. Grace shuddered, the voice echoing in her skull. She wanted to argue, to insist that they could explain their intentions, but the weight of the Valther's presence crushed any words she might have spoken. Nathan stepped forward, his hand raised. We didn't know, he said, his voice calm but firm. We didn't understand the danger. Please, we're just explorers. We mean no harm. The Valther leader stared at him, his eyes glowing brighter. The energy in the air intensified, making it difficult to breathe. You are fools. You think your presence here is unimportant, but you have awakened forces you cannot control. You do not understand the price of your actions. Nathan's eyes flicked to Grace, who was still holding the artifact. He realized then that she had been the one to trigger this. Her discovery had set everything in motion. The Valther were not going to let this go. We need to leave, Nathan said, his voice low. Now. But Grace didn't move. She was transfixed by the artifact, her eyes wide in awe. They're not going to kill us, she whispered. They're trying to warn us, to guide us. This is bigger than us, Nathan. The Valther leader raised one hand, and the ground beneath the humans cracked open. A wave of energy rippled outward, sending a shockwave through the air. The crew was thrown to the ground, their weapons scattering across the rocky surface. Grace's voice trembled. Please, listen to me. I can make them understand. I can. Before she could finish, the leader of the Valther spoke again, his voice filled with anger. You have no understanding. Your pride has brought you here, and now it will be your downfall. Leave, or we will destroy everything you hold dear. Nathan scrambled to his feet, pulling Grace away from the artifact. The Valther were not just powerful, they were ancient, far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. There was no way they could fight them and win. We can't stay here, Nathan said urgently, pulling Grace toward the ship. This is a mistake. We need to leave before they... But before he could finish his sentence, the ground rumbled once more. The Valther leader raised his other hand, and a brilliant beam of light shot from his palm, striking the ship. The Eclipse groaned under the attack, its engines sputtering and flickering. Get back to the ship, Nathan shouted. We're leaving now. But Grace hesitated. The artifact in her hand pulsed with an eerie light, its glow intensifying. She knew she had just uncovered something monumental, something that could change the course of human history. But as she looked around at the approaching Valther, she realized that no discovery was worth the cost of their lives. With one last glance at the artifact, Grace turned and ran toward the ship, her heart heavy with regret. They had come here seeking knowledge, but instead they had awoken a sleeping giant. Nathan's mind raced as he led the crew back to the ship. The Valther were far too powerful for them to fight. But as they climbed aboard the Eclipse, Nathan knew one thing for certain. The pride of humanity had led them to this moment. And now there would be no escaping the consequences. The Eclipse was in chaos. The crew rushed back to their stations, but the ship's systems were failing fast. The Valther's energy blast had crippled the ship's engines, and alarms blared throughout the vessel. Nathan stood at the helm, his hands shaking as he tried to regain control of the ship. The Valther had made their intentions clear. They were not going to let the humans leave without consequences. We can't take off like this, Nathan muttered, staring at the flickering control panels. The engines are shot. Grace, still holding the artifact, looked around the bridge, her face pale with fear. We have to leave. We can't stay here. The Valther will destroy us. Nathan didn't need to be reminded. The Valther's power was like nothing humanity had ever faced. The energy they had unleashed was enough to cripple a ship like the Eclipse without breaking a sweat. He quickly turned to the crew. Get to the escape pods, he ordered. We're abandoning ship. The crew scrambled into action, some heading toward the escape pods while others tried to salvage what they could from the damaged ship. Nathan watched them go, his mind racing. They had come to this planet seeking knowledge, but now they were running for their lives. Grace stood by his side, still gripping the artifact tightly. "I can't just leave it," she said, her voice trembling. "This artifact, it's a key to something bigger. I have to understand it." Nathan turned to her, frustration building inside him. "Grace, there's nothing more to understand. The Valthar warned us. They told us to leave and we didn't listen. We're lucky they haven't destroyed us already." But Grace couldn't let it go. She was driven by something more than fear. She believed that this artifact was the key to unlocking the Valthar's secrets, the key to understanding them. And she couldn't walk away from it, not now, not when it was so close. "Nathan," Grace said, her voice soft but firm, "if we leave now, we'll never get another chance. We need to learn what this is. If we can understand the Valthar, maybe we can change our fate." Nathan looked at her, his eyes narrowing. He could see the determination in her face, the same look that had led them to this dangerous place in the first place. But as much as he wanted to argue, he knew she wouldn't listen. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Fine, but we're not staying here long. We take what we can and then we get out." "Understood," Grace nodded, relief washing over her. She turned back to the artifact, her hands trembling as she examined it once again. It was still glowing, pulsing with an energy that felt both alien and familiar. Grace couldn't explain it, but she felt a connection to it. She felt that it was meant for her. Nathan looked at the ship's controls one last time, realizing that there was nothing more they could do. The Valthar were closing in, and the eclipse was no longer a safe place. He grabbed Grace by the arm and pulled her toward the escape pod bay. "Let's go, Grace, now." Reluctantly, she let go of the artifact, though her eyes lingered on it. The escape pods were their only hope now. As they made their way toward the pod, the ship's alarms grew louder, signaling the impending destruction. Nathan's heart raced as he punched in the code for the pod. The doors slid open, and the two of them rushed inside. "All pods are launching," a voice over the intercom announced. "All crew members evacuate immediately." Nathan strapped himself in and looked over at Grace. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. She hadn't wanted it to come to this, but there was no turning back now. The eclipse was lost, and their only chance for survival was to escape. The pod jettisoned from the eclipse with a sudden jolt, sending them hurtling toward the planet's surface. Nathan watched as the ship behind them was consumed by a brilliant explosion, the shockwave vibrating through the pod. He could feel the heat from the blast, even from this distance. "We made it," Nathan said, his voice hoarse with relief. But there was no time to celebrate. They still had to survive. Grace looked out the window, her face grim. "We've only just begun, Nathan. The Valthar are still out there, and we have no idea what we've done by coming here." Nathan nodded, but he didn't have any answers. They had ignored the Valthar's warning, and now they had to deal with the consequences. He only hoped they could make it back to Earth before the Valthar found them again. The pod descended toward the planet's surface, its engines glowing brightly as it cut through the atmosphere. The world below looked desolate, rocky, barren, with no signs of life. The crew had landed far from the alien ruins, and Nathan had no idea what to expect when they touched down. The pod finally made contact with the ground with a soft thud, and the impact jarred them both. Nathan unstrapped himself, opening the pod's hatch. The air outside was thin but breathable, and the temperature was cold but not unbearable. He stepped out, looking around cautiously. Grace followed, still holding the artifact tightly in her hands. She looked around the desolate landscape, her mind racing. She had felt the Valthar's power, and she knew they wouldn't stop until they had destroyed everything humanity held dear. They had provoked something far beyond their understanding, and now they were paying the price. Nathan turned to her. "What now?" Grace's voice was steady, though her eyes betrayed her fear. "We need to find shelter, and we need to figure out what this artifact is. If we can understand it, maybe we can find a way to communicate with the Valthar. Maybe we can stop them before they destroy us." Nathan nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The Valthar were powerful, and they wouldn't let this slight go unnoticed for long. "We'll need to be quick. The Valthar aren't the kind of species you can reason with." They set off, moving quickly through the rocky terrain. The wind howled around them, carrying the scent of something unfamiliar. Grace was lost in thought, still clutching the artifact as though it were the only thing keeping her grounded. Hours passed, and the harsh conditions of the planet began to take their toll. Nathan's thoughts were consumed with their situation. They had no way of contacting Earth, no way of calling for help. Their only chance for survival now rested on Grace's ability to understand the Valthor's secrets and find a way to stop them before it was too late. As they moved deeper into the planet's surface, the first signs of life appeared, a strange, glowing plant that seemed to pulse with energy. It was nothing like anything Nathan had ever seen before, and it seemed to respond to their presence. Grace knelt beside it, examining the plant closely. This might be connected to the artifact. It could be part of the Valthor's technology. Nathan stared at her, uncertainty clouding his mind. You really think that artifact can save us? Grace hesitated. I don't know, Nathan, but we have no choice but to try. The days dragged on, and the situation grew more dire with each passing hour. The planet's harsh environment made survival a constant struggle. The cold winds and rocky landscape were unforgiving, and the food rations they had brought with them were quickly running out. Grace and Nathan had managed to find a small shelter in a cave, but it was clear that they were running out of time. The Valthor were still out there, and their warning had not been forgotten. Grace's obsession with the artifact had only deepened as she tried to unlock its secrets, but the weight of their situation was starting to take its toll on her. Nathan sat by the cave entrance, his eyes scanning the horizon. The sky was a dull gray, and the air felt heavy with the tension of what was to come. He had always been a man of action, someone who made quick decisions when things went wrong. But this time, things were different. They were on an alien world, surrounded by unknown dangers with no way to communicate with Earth. He turned to Grace, who was still examining the artifact, her brow furrowed in concentration. Grace, Nathan said softly, breaking the silence. We need to face the truth here. The Valthor aren't going to let us leave. They made it clear from the start that we were a threat to them. Grace didn't look up from the artifact. I know what they said, Nathan, she replied quietly. But this artifact, it's important. It's the key to understanding them, to finding a way to stop them before they destroy Earth. We can't just give up now. Nathan sighed, his patience wearing thin. I'm not giving up, Grace, but we can't keep running from the truth. The Valthor have already shown us their power. And we've done nothing but provoke them further. Grace's hands shook as she held the artifact. She had felt its power, its pull on her mind. It wasn't just an object, it was a symbol, a key to something far greater than anything humanity had ever encountered. She couldn't let go of it, not when it had the potential to change everything. I'm not saying we give up, Grace continued, her voice shaky. But we have to understand what this is. We have to unlock its secrets. It's our only chance to survive. Nathan stood up and walked over to her, his expression softening. I understand that you're driven by this discovery, Grace, but we're out of options. The longer we stay here, the more danger we're in. The Valthor won't stop until they've destroyed us, and we've already pushed them too far. Grace looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. I know the risks, Nathan, but I believe this is the only way. The Valthor, they're not just an enemy. They're a force of nature. If we don't understand them, if we don't learn how to communicate with them, we'll never stand a chance. Nathan knew Grace wasn't going to listen to him. She was too focused on the artifact, too consumed by the idea of unraveling its mysteries. But he also knew she was right about one thing. They didn't have much time. The Valthor were not a race that could be ignored. If they had already destroyed the eclipse, there was no telling what they might do next. We can't just sit here and hope the artifact will save us, Nathan said, his voice firm. We need to find a way to fight back, and that means we need to leave this place before the Valthor come for us again. Grace hesitated, her fingers brushing over the artifact. She knew Nathan was right. The longer they stayed, the more likely it was that they would be discovered, but something inside her couldn't let go of the hope that the artifact held the key to their survival. I'll try to unlock it, Grace said, her voice barely a whisper. But we need to leave before the Valthor find us. If we don't, it'll be too late. Nathan nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He didn't agree with Grace's obsession, but he knew that they had no choice but to move forward. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. As Grace continued to examine the artifact, Nathan's thoughts wandered. He thought about the eclipse, about the crew they had lost. He thought about Earth and the people they had left behind. And he thought about the pride that had led them here, the same pride that had caused them to ignore the warnings of the Valthor, to think that they could handle anything the galaxy threw at them. It was a pride that had led to their downfall. He had always believed that humanity could overcome any obstacle, that they were capable of achieving great things. But now, in the face of the Valthar, he realized how small and insignificant they truly were. The Valthar were a force beyond human comprehension, a race so ancient and powerful that they had no need for diplomacy or mercy. They were a reminder of how fragile humanity was in the grand scheme of the universe. "We've made a mistake, Grace," Nathan said, his voice heavy with regret. "We thought we could handle this, we thought we were in control, but the Valthar, they've shown us how foolish we were." Grace looked up at him, her expression torn. "I know. But we can't change what's happened. All we can do now is try to survive, and the artifact is the only way we have left." Nathan nodded, knowing that she was right. But a part of him still felt the sting of pride, the feeling that they could have avoided all of this if only they had listened. The Valthar had warned them, but they had ignored the warning in their pursuit of knowledge, in their belief that they could conquer any challenge. For the first time since they had arrived on the planet, Nathan felt the weight of their mistakes. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about understanding the true cost of their pride, the consequences of their actions. As Grace worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of the artifact, Nathan kept a close watch on the cave's entrance. Every rustle of the wind, every shifting of the ground made his heart race. He knew they were running out of time. The Valthar would come for them soon, and when they did, there would be no escape. Hours passed, and the tension in the cave grew thicker. Nathan's mind was a blur of thoughts and regrets, but he couldn't let himself get lost in them. He had to stay focused. They still had a chance. They still had the artifact. Finally, Grace stood up, her eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and fear. "I've figured it out," she said, her voice trembling. "This isn't just an artifact, it's a map, a guide. It's showing us a way to communicate with the Valthar." Nathan's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? How can we use it?" Grace held the artifact up, its glow intensifying. "It's a bridge, a way for us to connect with them. If we can activate it properly, we might be able to reach out to the Valthar to make them understand that we don't mean harm. We can make peace with them before it's too late." Nathan's mind raced. Was this their chance? Was it really possible to change the Valthar's mind, to convince them that humanity wasn't their enemy? Or was this just another mistake, another step toward their destruction? There was no time to waste. They had to try. If this was their last chance, they had to take it. "Let's do it," Nathan said, his voice filled with determination. "We don't have any other choice." Together, they activated the artifact. The light from it flared brighter, and the ground beneath their feet trembled as the connection to the Valthar was made. A deep, resonant voice filled their minds, and the world around them seemed to fade away. "You have made your choice, humans," the voice said. "Now you will face the consequences."